Audrey, thank you so much for joining me today as we chat
Yes,
about Waitlist.
we love a wait list. Happy to
We
be
love a
here.
waitlist.
Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
So, for the people watching this, I would love if you could take a moment and just let us know who is Audrey.
Yeah, happy to. I'm Audrey. I have worked in growth, product, lifecycle marketing for really the last decade. I've worked in all types of tech companies. I've worked at big tech like LinkedIn, Expedia, eBay, Medium, and then smaller startups. And about a year ago, I started a growth agency with a friend, and we have worked with tons of different companies of all sizes and all scales, and ultimately just help them create growth strategies, execute on growth strategies. And it's been really fun, and we've learned so much in the process. And it's been really cool to really just help people grow their businesses. And so I'm happy to be here today to talk all about wait lists. I think it's a really useful tool when done well, and you can really build a lot of momentum for your product or what you're trying to build. So happy to chat.
Yay. Okay, let's get right into it. So, we're going to take this question from the point of view of I'm at the very beginning of building a waitlist. Where do I even start?
Totally. Okay. So if you think you want to build a wait list, I think the biggest thing you need to ask yourself is why. Like, why are you trying to do this? Is it just because you think you need to have one? Because you absolutely don't. You don't need to have one. I would say if you don't understand your product and what you're trying to build, you need to wait until you have that. So foundationally, you really need to understand what makes you special and what makes your product special, and then what makes you different. Why is your solution different than anything else? And those are the two things you really need to fundamentally learn. Even if you don't know what the product will be, how it will grow, you just need to know the value. So I think you need to start there. And if you can define those, then you can really start to sell it. That's the biggest thing, is like you need people to understand why they should even be on this wait list. So first it's defining those, and then making sure that people understand. And so that's really like step one. It's so foundational. It's really like product marketing 101. It's like the key value props differentiation. And that's where I would start. And it sounds really basic, but it's the most effective way to begin the process.
I agree. Basic, but an often skipped step. So
Totally.
I'm right there with you. Now, a question that I get often, especially when it comes to doing more of the customer discovery or even user research, which I feel like applies here, is okay, but like, where do I go and meet them? So, assuming that I have an idea, a really strong idea of what I'm doing and who I'm doing it for, what approach can I take? Should I throw a community event? Do I partner with people? I think sometimes people think it's like awkward to be like, hey, sign up for my wait list. Any tips on how people can overcome that and where they could go or how they could go about finding that target person that wants to be on their wait list?
Yeah, totally. I think the thing that you said is really it. You need to think about your target person who you want on that wait list. And really, it comes down to who do you want? Who do you think your primary audience is? And then you need to think about where are those people? If you are creating something that's for Gen Z or some specific market, you really need to understand like where do they hang out and what do they do? And not just physically and in person, like where do they hang out online? Where are they? And then think about who around them is going to get you access to them. So if you are someone who has access to communities that you are trying to serve for, like get involved. And that means LinkedIn is such a great way to do this. I think you can really get interest there or be pointed to the right people. I think that's a great one. If you're starting really small, let's say you're just a startup founder and you are like, I have nowhere to go. That's where I would start. I would start with LinkedIn. I would start in person. I think this can be harder and slower, I think, is what people find. That does not mean less impactful though. So I think you need to think about how much time, how much work you're willing to put into it. So I would start LinkedIn. I would think of the spaces. Are there networking events you need to go to? Are there online events that you should be doing? Are there people who you should be reaching out to? It's really mining your network and like getting really specific with what you're asking for. I think people really do want to help you and point you to the right people as long as you know who that type of person you want is. Again, foundationally, it's understanding who your target audience is and understanding where they are and where they show up and getting really specific. One thing I will say is you don't want just anyone on your wait list. You really want your target customer on there and who you think that is. I think people who just want a big wait list for like a big number's sake to feel like they have like excitement, you're really going to see low conversion rates at the end if you're not having the right people. So that's a big common pitfall, which we can talk about later, but that's really important. So understand what makes you different, what makes you special, understand who your target audience is, very foundational, and then go looking in the right spots for them.
Awesome. So my next question is, how early is too early to build a wait list, or is it never too early?
Okay, this is a little bit of a loaded question. I think it absolutely, and I hate to be like a non-answer, it absolutely depends on what your product is. If you are building a big physical product, like I think you and I even chatted, if you are building the Tesla Cybertruck, regardless of how that example lands today, that is very different than being like, I'm building a like small feature like based company for an app. Like that is so wildly different and your waitlist might look different. So I think the biggest thing here is once you understand who your target customer is, what is the value and does that value, think critically. Don't be like, no, I think it could be this like $1 billion idea. Like what in that MVP are they going to get when they like sign up for that wait list, and like what are they really getting at the end of it, like once they convert, and does that align with how long you're making them wait? So I would say like no longer than 3 to 6 months if you have something that is a little smaller and you're trying to get MVP work. It takes so much effort to keep people excited, and you have to have a lot to offer at the end of that like carrot essentially. And people get bored, they move on, and then when you are ready to launch, you like missed your moment. So I think it's really important to think about that and be really realistic with yourself and not think about what you'd like it to be, but what it actually is. And so it is different for everybody, and I do have different, it just depends, but you do need to think about what you can offer them during that time.
So +1 on everything you said, and I'll even tell a story. During the pandemic, my family and I love Shark Tank. It's a show I watch to this day. With myself, with my family, I don't really care. I love Shark Tank. And there was a company on Shark Tank called New Milk. And you and people watching this have probably seen them in Whole Foods. That's where I was exposed to New Milk. Basically, their whole thing was they took almonds and they made almond milk for you right on the spot. And they went on Shark Tank, and this was peak 2020, so I had nothing else to do. And they had a Kickstarter, and you pledged money. If they made their pledge, then they were going to produce them. And because I bought during the Shark Tank deal, I was going to have a New Milk home come to me, which was something that they hadn't done. They only had the big ones in different stores and cafes. And that was December of 2020. I did not get it until last year.
Oh my God.
And so it was, yeah, seriously, I didn't get it till last year. And yeah, I guess they made it, the benefits were they made it a bit cheaper. They threw in some of the New Milk packs. So that wasn't something I was going to have to worry about when I got it. And it was so interesting because there were people who were like, you didn't give this to me fast enough.
Okay.
Like, I'm out of here. Give me my money back. But I think what they were trying to do in the middle was tell us being very communicative every couple months about what was happening. They were having a lot of manufacturing issues. And then they were also just trying to keep us up to date as to what was happening business-wise. But it was definitely like very stiff updates.
Did you have, when you got it, were you like surprise and delight moment, or were you a little bit like, oh, finally, but like happy you have it now? What was the vibe?
Yes, I felt so unbothered I don't know, it felt so blah. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, cool. This was definitely cooler of an idea when I purchased it in
Yeah.
2020. And to the point where I don't even use it. I haven't even made anything with it. And now I'm looking to figure out how to get rid of it.
Wow. Okay. That I think is such a great example of the poor experience ultimately. The fact that you are saying you're not even using it, you're just meh, you're not like an evangelist now, getting so excited. If that came in a few weeks, even a few months, that would have been so much fun, especially during COVID. You would have had plenty of time to figure out what to do with it. And like you could have maybe bought more over time. I think that's years of time. And also, maybe you're getting updates, which is helpful, but that doesn't reinforce value. That's just logistical. And so I think it's a missed opportunity. And now you're not someone who's maybe a repeat customer because of that. And maybe you would be now if you just net new heard of them. And we're like, oh, hey, that's really cool. I'm going to start buying that product. Like now you have a negative association, even if it's just a little bit. And that's a really big missed opportunity. And I think that's when a waitlist can actually turn against you. And so you can build all this excitement and anticipation, but if you don't deliver, it's like worse than if you would have just launched brand new. So yeah, really
Exactly.
important.
Super important. Okay, let's go a tad deeper. What motivates someone to sign up? And what makes them stay engaged until that launch time comes?
Yeah, I think you need to be promising value. So you need to, whatever you have, if it's a physical product, a digital product, whatever, the value has to be so clear. People need to get excited. There needs to be a reason they're signing up for this wait list. If it's just to be a part of it, that's even enough. If just to be a part of a community and just get excited and be on the know, be in the know is really important. I think for it, there are so many ways you can offer that value. I think one of the easiest and biggest is, can these people who are excited to join, can they get anything? Can they get something for free? Can they get a different tier of the product if it's like a physical or digital something? Like, can they have a VIP experience? If it's a digital product, can you let them beta test it? Can you get their feedback? That's a huge value add for someone to feel like they're invested and their time is worth it. Also, as someone growing a business, that's wildly useful for you to have that user feedback, like more useful for you even than for them. But then you have these people who are excited. There are ways you can make things exclusive. I think a really good example of this was Clubhouse back when that was booming during the pandemic. I think regardless of how you feel about them, they had an amazing wait list. They had this one, they understood their timing. They like could not have had a better time to really go with these like live events. But they ultimately created this like viral gated exclusive wait list that everyone wanted access and no one could get access. They had like celebrities, they had FOMO, they had all of this intrigue. And that's like dream scenario for people. That's not normal. But for everyone else, it's just like thinking about there are so many things you can do. You can gamify it. I think Robinhood is another example. They launched, I think in 2014, a wait list, and you would get more if you referred friends. Like your status on the wait list would go up versus like how many friends you would invite. And so you can think about these engagement and like growth mechanisms in your wait list that is not just like a static list of people. I think that's one of the common pitfalls. I know we'll talk about this again later, is thinking about your wait list of a static list of emails. It should absolutely not be this. You have an opportunity to segment it, to grow it, to talk about features. You could provide behind the scenes updates, VIP access. You can gamify it like Robinhood did. There are just so many ways you could think about this list and ultimately get people excited. And so it's something you have to do, especially like the longer and longer people wait. It's so important.
It's super important. And let's actually shift into the pitfalls. Like, what do people get wrong about wait lists? Last month, I went to an event where in order to get into the event, you had to download the app of a partner and co-sponsor. Now, that wasn't said to us beforehand. It was someone coming down the line of people being like, hey, you need to download this app and show it at the front if you want to get in. And it was interesting. I registered, obviously, so I could get into the event. It said that there was about 34 or 35K people on the wait list. And on the surface, it sounds super impressive. At the same time, though, I wondered how many times that they had used the tactic that they were just using on me to get into the event.
Yeah.
And it's not something I have checked in on. I deleted the app after, and it wasn't even open. There was a huge wait list of people in front of me. So I felt like that wasn't the best tactic to build a wait list and to get the word out about your company. And I was curious, are there other tactics that you've seen just really fall flat on their face?
Yeah, I have never heard of that. That feels like a bait and switch scenario where you're like, hey, you have
That's
to
a
go
bait
do
and
this
switch.
thing. And then you're
Yep.
like, okay, now I'm like on this wait list. Yeah, that doesn't feel good. I think too, it's like you just have to think as a human, like we're all consumers. What would you want to be on a list for? Like we know that I think most people would know that wouldn't feel good. Hey, let's kind of like trick you to join this wait list. I think, yeah, that's a big pitfall, like for them, obviously. You don't want that. I think the overpromise, under deliver is a huge issue. You can do all this marketing and be like, oh my God, it's this amazing thing. And then you get in and you're like, okay, this is the worst experience or just shitty and bad. And you promised this whole feature, but this is like clearly an MVP of something that we shouldn't be using unless we're beta testing. I think that's a huge one. I think again, it's using your list like a static list. I think I already mentioned that, but it's so important to think about how you can evangelize the people on your wait list for the whole process. Think of them not just as people waiting. Think of them as you have the privilege to be able to talk to them and get them excited about your product. So use that as, oh my God, thank you for being here. We're going to offer you as much as we can before that. Try and think of that to drum up this excitement. I think people are just too salesy too soon. If you push really hard to sell to your audience, they feel it. People know when you're selling to them. So just try not to be too salesy. And then also a big pitfall would be really failing to set expectations. I think a big mistake is not communicating clearly about when people can expect to access this. I think when you just keep getting delayed, if people just kept in the dark, you had mentioned you were before with the milk. People want a transparent timeline. They want updates, but you're going to lose people. So you have to know what you can offer them. I think those are probably the most common ones I see. It's just like really being so in tune with what your product is, what the value you have. And it really just comes back to those foundational things and then how you communicate it and how often. And people also don't like flat communication. If you're just saying, we're so excited you're on the list, that also could just remind them, oh, I'm on this list and I still don't have this thing. You can't do it without meaningful updates. That would be one as well that I would watch out for sure.
Awesome. All right, so we're getting to the last two questions here. The last question is, what makes a waitlist convert? Maybe let's bring it home for people by talking about what makes a waitlist convert, but if in that you can give people 3 things to focus on when it comes to them achieving this wait list that they've kept super engaged, and now we're shifting to conversion. If people take anything away, what are the good practices that they should be focusing on?
Yeah, I think when you are ready, like when you're like, it's time, it's time to go live, I think really reinforcing on the value props that you did the first time to get them to join. Make them feel that moment of like when they joined the first time, what made them do it? And try to recapture that again in the time that you have to get them to convert. I think that's one of the biggest. The second is to really just reiterate why your product is different, why it's special. I would think about that in terms of, is there anything you can offer them? Can you offer them a discount? Can you still offer them something just for being this loyal waitlist patron is so special. Maybe you've been giving them things in the past, but is there something even more that you could do to delight them in this moment and to have them really have a good taste in your mouth and really feel good about it? And then 3, I think it's just making sure with that pitfall, it's do not over promise. This is still a moment. You're probably excited because you're like, we are finally here. There's so much work behind the scenes that goes into it. But do not over promise, because if this fails, then they just waited all this time. You like overpromise and now they're like not happy with you. And that's just a huge mistake. So just like really continue to not do that. I think that's really important. And yeah, and it can go really well. And I think for you, even with the story you shared of your example, I feel like it would have been really helpful if they would have been like trying to drum up this excitement. They could have acknowledged, we know it's been years. It could have been so fun. It's literally been years. We've had all of these pitfalls, all of this logistical errors and nightmares. They could have shared that with you almost like in a really community minded way of, oh my gosh, it's been crazy for us. Could you have gotten something more fun or discounts or something else in the process? I don't know. And maybe it would have made it better for you in the moment when you received it. So there are ways, but yeah, just keep to your core, keep your foundational value props, your differentiation, get people excited, and it can work. Yeah.
I love that. And getting people excited can look different. That could be an online campaign, an in-person situation, maybe a mix of both. I feel like in this day and age, getting people excited about your waitlist doesn't always have to be through their email channels. There are tons of ways to
Totally.
engage it and bring it to life.
Yeah, totally. I think you're spot on. It's just what channels do you have? Where are the people that you are trying to reach? And you can be so creative. Yeah, you can do events, you could do videos, you could do even just regular social media, just something
Yes.
fun. There's so much. You can partner with people to get them excited. You can offer things. Yeah, it's just really thinking through your channels and your specifics.
Audrey, it was a pleasure. And I cannot wait for you to be IRL with us in New York on Friday, April 25th at Fabrik in DUMBO, specifically 20 J Street.
Yes, I'm so excited, and I will see you next week.